Hey y'all, it's Sarah here. We are sitting by the fire, and I think I somehow deleted my last one. I don't know where it went, so we're gonna retry this. I'm sitting by the fire. It is a cold day up here in Wisconsin. I am freezing. Um, so I'm sitting by the fire. My youngest is sleeping. My oldest boys are in school. So I'm sitting here drinking my Shakeology. Um, if you don't know who I am Sarah. I run a fitness website, bravegirlfitness.com, and I have a personal blog over at heybravegirl.com. So I'm sitting here today, keeping warm. I hope y'all are staying warm, seriously. And so the title for today's podcast, or I don't know what this is, webcast, hangout on air. The title for today is A Time to Bloom, and what that means for your life and what it means for my life. And this is just what I've learned recently. It's got me so excited. Super excited, actually. Um, all right. So I don't know if you're familiar with this it's kind of a new trend, I guess, but instead of New Year's resolutions, choosing a focus word for your year. I was introduced to this concept 2 years ago, and when I first heard about it, I thought, there's no way in HE double hockey sticks I can pick one word, I talk a lot, one word for an entire year. Like, that just ain't gonna happen. Shockingly, though, I would go to bed and I would wake up and I would just have this word in my head. And each year, each word has been like spot on for my year and what was going on for that year. And it kind of like, I think it really defined the entire year. So I was excited to do it this year. And for like 2 whole days, I couldn't come up with a word. I think I was overthinking it. And I was like, whatever, I'm just going to get out the dictionary and I knew that I wanted the word to kind of be around like thrive or flourish, but those weren't really jiving, and it didn't feel just quite right. And I was like, no, that's not it. And all of a sudden I got out of bed the one morning, and it was just like, bloom. I'm like, yes, that's perfect. That's my word, bloom. Because I don't know if you know me personally or know anything that's gone on, but I've, for the past couple of years, kind of really come through some different seasons in life. And I mentioned this on my Facebook that I'm just super excited about 2016. Like, I just have this excitement about the year that I don't know even how to explain it. I feel like a kid on Christmas morning about this year and blooming. And I've been through some pretty difficult seasons in life, and I just really am excited. Like, I feel like it's finally my time. Gotta check the fire. Time to bloom. So I don't know if that's where you're at, or maybe you've been through some stuff. I hope maybe that this webcast can encourage you a little bit and give you some direction, or if you're feeling like you're going through some serious junk right now, that this will give you some guidance, because I've been through the junk. Okay, so I'm going to read you the definition of bloom, so just hold on a second as I move this over. All right, so the definition of bloom means it is a flower, especially one cultivated for its beauty. It is the state or period of flowering, meaning, like when you see trees that are in blossom and they're all, blooming in the apple trees or whatever, it's the state or period of greatest beauty, freshness, or vigor. It is also, okay, in the verb sense, it means to come into or be in full beauty, health, and flourishing, the process of thriving, and it is a state of maturity, to become radiant and glowing. I don't know about you, but I think all of that sounds pretty awesome for one little word, which is bloom. And the more I kind of have been thinking about this the past couple of weeks, the more that's really just been popping up, like, what does it mean to bloom? What has to happen in order, like, how can you tell where you're at? And I learned a lot. I actually attended a Danny Johnson seminar, which was First Steps to Success and then Creating a Dynasty. And I had been reading in the Bible about this, and she just went spot on, in depth, with being able to recognize the different seasons of your life. And a lot of people get discouraged. I feel like I was one of those people, because I wanted to be in that season of blooming like right now. I wanted to be there. But there's a process you have to go through before you can even get there. And it doesn't mean that you're never going to get here. It just means that you're maybe in a different season. You can't bloom in wintertime because you just don't bloom in wintertime. The roots are there. The roots are underground, and they're there, but they're not blooming, so you don't see anything, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to bloom. So I think understanding that life has seasons, like I think it's Galatians maybe. I'm bad with the verses, but it says, do not grow weary of doing good, for at the right time you will reap a proper harvest. And I just really like that verse. I was like, yeah. And what really stood out to me, if you do not give up, that's the end of the verse. So many people cut it off there, but the end of the verse is, you will reap a proper harvest if you do not give up. Meaning, some people don't see blooms or blossoms in their life, and it's not because it wasn't going to blossom, it's because they quit. It's not that the seed, they stopped watering or they yanked it up or whatever it was. Yeah, they did. That's why they don't see blooms in their life, and they can't figure it out. And they're like, why? I don't know why my business isn't working. It's because you stopped watering it. It's because you're not working it. It's not that the business doesn't work, because if the business model didn't work, people wouldn't be out there succeeding with the very same resources that you have. If you want the business to work, you've got to work the business. That's one of the things. Or people who I see on one hand say, I want to lose weight, but I love food. I can't exercise. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Well, you're trying to water in one hand, and in the other hand, you're just yanking everything up. You're not going to get anywhere like that. You have to stop. You have to stop with that crap. Like if you want to bloom, you got to keep the water on there, and you got to protect the sprouts that are growing. Like, for example, some of the sprouts that you see, and we learned how to identify sprouts at Creating a Dynasty, but I realized I was a sprout stomper, meaning there were these little tiny, fragile, frail things that needed protecting in my life. Like I was seeing improvements with my kids, and because they weren't acting exactly the way I wanted to at the end, even though they were making improvements, I was just kind of brushing those off and being like, oh, it's not working. This is so hard. And I was just totally dismissing the sprouts that were showing up in my life. Sprouts are evidence of what's to come. They're the proof of what's to come down the road. If you keep watering it, if you protect your sprouts, sprouts need to be protected. Like when you're farming, you don't, it takes some time, when you're planting a field of corn, it takes some time for that corn to mature, which is part of the word of blooming. So that was one of the things. There are sprouts in your life. You have to be able to recognize them and protect them and keep watering them without ripping up, what you're doing. You can't be ripping in one hand and trying to water in the other. That doesn't work. Another thing that you can identify with blooming and wondering, am I coming into a season of blooming? I feel like I'm going through a lot of junk in my life right now. And what I learned, even from reading today, was that you have to go through the junk in order to get to a point of being able to bloom. And when you think about a seed, where does the seed get planted? You don't put the seed on top of the soil. No, you plant the seed in the dirt. And that tiny little seed has to push up through the dirt. And you need to continually be watering that thing, even when you can't see anything coming up. You can't see evidence of anything. You keep watering it, knowing that if you water it, knowing that if you're consistent, that you're going to see a sprout. Not a full-grown plant, a sprout. So if you're looking for, you're looking to pay off some debt, you're looking to make more money, the first thing, the seed, is that investment you made in your business. The water that you need to pour into that is actually working your business, following up with people. If you're into the fitness coaching industry, that's, running challenge groups, helping other people, and staying consistent with it. That's the watering of it. The seed is the business. It's easy to plant a seed, but many people forget to water it, and they're just like, it didn't work, whatever. If you're planting a seed of health for your future, or you want to lose weight, you got to water that. Like, you have to take steps every day in order to do that. Don't rip the root system up. You've got to go through some dirt. It's hard. And what I was reading today, it's Proverbs 15, verse 5. And what I find interesting, this is my favorite personal development book, and I love Proverbs. But Proverbs, and I don't think it's a coincidence either, that there's 31 chapters in Proverbs and 31 days in a month. That's not a coincidence, just saying. So I try to read the corresponding, so like today's the 15th, so I'll try to read Proverbs 15 today. Or, tomorrow's the 16th, I'll read the 16th tomorrow. Anyway, so Proverbs 15, verse 5 says, "Those who heed correction are mature." And that was part of the blooming process too. So in order to to come to a state of full maturity, or the process of being mature, it said those who heed correction are mature. So if we know that a bloom or a blossom is mature, we know we're going to have to heed correction. So what attitude, so then you're thinking about that. You're like, okay, that seems easy enough, but what kind of attitude is required in order to bloom? That's a teachable attitude. That's an attitude whose correctable means that you're humble, that you're honest, you have integrity. Those are some of the qualities that you're looking for when you're coming into a period of blooming. You're going through a period of correction, which, let's be honest, nobody likes correction. I had to go through my period of correction, and it was intense. And I had to apologize to people even when they were acting like jerks, and I didn't want to apologize. I'm like, I don't want to apologize to that person, and it was like, fine. I had my own heart to get worked on, and I'm still getting worked on. It's a process. I mean, I'm not like there. I'm not going to be there. This is a process. Even to the day I die, it's continual. It's every day. Anyway, so another thing is there's another chapter, and I think it's in James, and it says, like, going through dirt. So if you're a period where I was at, where you're like, my life right now is just not fun. I feel like I'm pushing through a lot of dirt. I'm not seeing anything yet. I'm like and I'm watering and watering. You're in the stage where your seed's about to crack open and you're about to go through some more dirt. Because think about that. Here, pretend this is the ground. Here's this little seed that's, under the ground. It has to crack open first, which that can't be fun. And it's got to start to put some little roots down and go push through dirt. Then it's got to break through the soil to even get a little sprout above the ground. That's pretty intense. So if you're going through a period of that, know that, no, it doesn't mean that you're not blooming. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get here. Don't judge where other people are at and say, oh, I'm not there. Don't get discouraged by where somebody else is at. They've been through the dirt. They're in a different stage that you are. They're in a different season. If you're in the dirt right now, you're in the dirt. Get through the dirt. You're going to poke through. It's going to be okay. In the Bible, it says that, I don't know, I'm bad with verses, but it says trials produce in, let's see here. Let me get it so I'm being accurate. It said, consider it pure joy when you face trials because it produces perseverance, it's a testing of your faith, which produces maturity. And then, and then it says, so essentially, you develop maturity out of your troubles and your trials. And we know that blooming is a period of maturity. So in order to be mature, you have to go through the dirt. You've got to go through the troubles. You've got to go through the trials. And then, so let's say that you've already sprouted and you're watering that and you're speaking life over your situation. You're focusing on the positives. You're not saying, oh, I'm not making $10,000 a month yet. I quit. You don't do that. You keep watering it. You keep watering it. You keep watering your business. You keep following up. You keep going. Even when you can't see that $10,000 a month yet or even that $500 a month yet, you keep going. Because if you don't quit, like the verse says, that at the right time you will reap a proper harvest if you don't give up. You know that if you don't give up, you're gonna reap that harvest. And once you've sprouted and you're through and you get to this mature plant, it's not the end of it. And that's too where I was like, once you're blooming, it's awesome. You're in this period of bloom and it's like, oh, great, and you don't have to worry about anything ever again. Is that true? No. 2 weeks ago, I was sitting in church, and I think Pastor Jeff was the one talking about it, and there was a Bible verse that came up. I'll find this one, too. It's so fascinating. So fascinating. Okay, so Bible verse is John 15, verse 2. I'm cheating, by the way. I don't have these memorized. I can't remember the numbers ever, but I can remember the verse, just can't remember the numbers. So John 15, verse 2. Every branch that does not bear fruit, he cuts and takes away. But every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes it so that it may bear more fruit. Okay, so that might not mean much to you right now, and you're like, so what? I don't know. How does that apply to me? Because at first when I heard this, I was like, yeah, whatever. Okay, what? I've heard this verse so many times, and I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Like twirling my hair, not paying attention. But after I thought of the word bloom for this year, that verse kind of got me because I'm like, bloom, prune, it's like plants. It all has to do with each other. Pruning means that either way, whether you're quitting or you're a dead branch and you're not producing fruit, or you're blooming and you're doing awesome in your business, or you're losing weight or whatever, you're both going to go through a period of pruning, which means to get trimmed, to cut away the dead or overgrown branches, to increase the fruitfulness and grow even more. It also means to reduce the extent of something by removing superfluous or unwanted parts. Superfluous. Let's look that up. What does that mean? Superfluous. I know, but I just can't. Okay. Oh, unnecessary, being more than enough, non-essential. So the process of pruning happens after you've already bloomed, where anything else that's holding you back in your life. So you're blooming, but anything else that's holding you back is going to be cut away. Why? So that you can produce more fruit, so that you can be even more fruitful, so that you can grow even more. Because usually where you prune a branch, at least in my case, you know, for my rose bush, where you prune it, it comes back and there's two more, and it's beautiful. And I'm like, yeah, but you have to prune it. So you can't just be this person that's like, yeah, I'm going. If you don't want to get pruned, you're going to get overgrown and be all gnarly and weird and not produce any more fruit. So then you get to a period of where if you're unpruned, you're not producing anything. Like a rose bush, you don't produce roses anymore. So you've got to submit yourself to that, and you have to understand that just because maybe you're in a season of blooming, that doesn't mean that you're resistant to correction. That doesn't mean that you're not going to have to you don't have to change anymore. It's always this new process, and it's always so that you can continue to grow, you can continue to bear fruit. And I just found that to be really interesting. And the last part of this that I've learned through this whole blooming thing is I always have a tendency to just I get bored really easily. This is the longest I've lived in a place for like I don't know how long. And yeah, and so this is where I really have to like get uncomfortable here and tell this to myself, because so say you're in a period of blooming or you're coming into that, you do not rip the root system up either. If you want to have a really good flowering plant, number one, you bloom where you're planted, baby. And this really hit me. It's like you bloom wherever you're at right now in life. You don't need to go somewhere else in order to bloom. You don't need to go there to bloom. You don't need to have that car. You don't need to have that job to bloom. You bloom here. The period and the process of blooming and coming into that state of full maturity or full beauty, it starts in here. That you know that you don't have to seek anything external in order to start living the life that you are meant to be, in order to start living your full calling at your full capacity. That it's a state that begins in here, where you're at right now. You prosper where you're planted with what you've been given. And when that's even in the Bible too. When you're faithful with the little things, you will be made ruler over much. You will have things given to you. You'll have whatever you have be multiplied when you're faithful with what you have now. And what I learned about blooming too is that you don't go ripping up the root system. So like for me, it's really hard to stay in one spot, but I know that I've been called to prosper where I'm at right now in the middle of central Wisconsin. I don't know why. I'd rather be at the beach in Florida, but for whatever reason, I was called to be here. And here's where I've been planted, and here's where I have to bloom. And I see a lot of people who are like, you know what, in order for me to be happy, I have to go there, and I have to have this job, I have to go to school for that, I have to live in this place. And it's a constant state of chasing. And it's just a constant state of unrest and never being happy with what's right there. And it's this constant unsettlement or unfulfillment, where if you don't learn to be fulfilled with what you have, where you're at, you're always going to be chasing. You are never going to be blooming if you're constantly ripping up the roots of those plants and trying to pick them up and transplant them somewhere else. If you want to be established, you have to put down some roots and prosper where you're planted and stay there and just do it and get through it. And I'm telling myself this because I'm just like, oh, it's cold. I want to go to Florida. I wanted to go to the beach. Blah, blah, blah. I don't want to be here right now. And that's the truth. I don't. But I know that if I'm going to bloom into my fullest maturity, I can't rip my roots up. And I'm going to have to stay here and just, darn it, I'm going to prosper where I'm planted. So bloom wherever you're at right now. Wherever that is. You don't have to go anywhere else to bloom. You can start doing that, and that starts from within. So just a quick recap on everything in case you missed any of it. Blooming means that there's going to have to be a seed that's planted first. Whatever that seed is, you know, whether it's business or weight loss or fitness, that's the seed is that desire. It's that initial investment that you made. The second part that you have in the process of blooming is you got to go through some dirt. We learned that going through the dirt produces trials, and that trials are going to produce the hope and perseverance and maturity that you need in order to be a full blooming, blossoming plant. The third thing in the stage of blooming is when that sprout is just poking up out of the ground. Don't rip it up. Don't stop watering it just because it's a sprout and not a full blooming plant. So if it's your weight loss, keep watering it. Keep staying consistent. If it's your business, keep watering that seed. Keep doing it. Whatever it is that you're doing right now, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's volunteer work. Maybe it's, you know, you're trying to change your marriage or your relationship and make it better, or have a better relationship with your kids, or whatever that is, whatever sprouts are in your life, keep watering them, because we learned that if we don't give up, we will reap a proper harvest. We will have that full blossoming plant. We've also learned that when you do get to be that full blossoming plant, you don't just get to keep on going wild and do whatever you want untamed. Nope, you have to submit yourself to pruning. And it's going to hurt and whatever, and you're going to shut off the dead, unnecessary parts that are holding you back. But pruning has a purpose. It's so that you can get even more fruitful and grow even more. There you have it. Oh, and the last one. You can't be ripping up your roots. You have to learn to prosper right where you're planted. So there you have it. There's the fireside chat for today with me. I hope this was somewhat informative at all, or maybe a little encouraging or inspiring. I want to encourage you that if you're going through the dirt right now, my heart totally goes out to you, because there were times when I did not see the light. I could not see it, and let me tell you, last year at this time, I was living in a tiny, tiny, tiny little box of a house that was so tiny. I had 3 kids in that house. We were living in 375 square feet of livable space. Me, my baby in my room, and 2 other kids, you know, and I could not, at the time, I didn't know, but I just trusted. And my dream last year at this time was to be somewhere with a fireplace, and I'm here sitting by the fireplace right now getting to tell you this, that I know that when you're in the midst of it, you can't see a way out, and it's easy to feel discouraged. I'm telling you, stay encouraged. The dirt does not last forever. You will come to a period where you're sprouting and you're about to bloom and about to blossom. And I'm so happy and excited for you. Don't give up. Stay encouraged. Stay plugged in. And if you need hope and you need some guidance in this direction, this is the absolute best book that's encouraged me so much and gotten me through everything, because I could not have done it without it. Even if you just read Proverbs, this is the most realistic advice I've ever received. I mean, seriously, 1 proverb a day. That's all it corresponds to. There's 31 chapters in Proverbs. There's usually 31 days in a month. Read 1 chapter a day. And this stuff has gotten me through the worst of the dirt. So I hope you all have a fantastic day, and if you're adopting Bloom for the word 2016, I am right there with you, and I hope we all rock it. So have a fabulous day and a great weekend. Bye, guys.